everyone, welcome to Brush and Splash Studio. My name is Bonnie and today I have another fall themed gel printing session for you to enjoy. If you haven't seen part 1, I'll link it down below in the description box for you if you're interested. So a few weeks ago, my husband and I saw the wonderful Rufus Wainwright in concert, and he played a cover of one of my favorite Neil Young songs, Harvest Moon. So I thought it would be fun to make some gel prints inspired by that particular song. Okay, so to start, I'm using my 5x7 gel plate, and I'm going to be creating a background for my first print. So I'm using Liquitex Basics in Naples Yellow and Red Oxide, and I'm going to be creating a sunset. And here I'm just using my smaller roller or brayer to blend the colors together as much as I can. And then I'm going to switch it up and use my bigger brayer to help smooth out any of the lines on the plate. So next I'm going to be creating some stars by using some baby powder made of cornstarch. And I'm using a sieve to help separate the baby powder because I don't want my stars to look clumped on my plate. And I'm working pretty fast because I just don't want my paint to dry. So this is a fun technique to try. It adds nice texture to your prints. And I'm just quickly cleaning up a little bit and grabbing my paper that's cut to size, and I'm going to place this down and use my baren to press it down nice and even, and I'm going to let it sit for a little bit, and then I'm going to pull the print and you'll see results in just a few moments. And the paper that I'm using for a few of my prints is craft paper, and I sometimes buy it pre-packaged at Michael's. Or I also buy it on the roll as well, and then just cut it myself. Okay, so here I'm applying my stencil that I made directly onto my gel plate. I cut this out using my cutting machine, and I use cardstock. I have a ton of cardstock that I'm trying to use up. So making stencils is a perfect way to do that. Alright, and I'm using my Folk Art Multi-Surface Satin Pure Black paint again. I love this stuff. I've been using it for years for different, crafts and hobbies of mine. It's very opaque. Alright, so what I'm doing here is applying one layer. I'm letting this dry, and then I'm going to apply multiple layers to build up the intensity. Okay, so now I'm using a pre-made stencil that I found in my collection to add some leaves and grass to the bottom section of my plate. Okay, so once I remove the stencil, you're going to see some areas that I'm going to have to remove, and it can be difficult to do if you just use water. So what I do is I use mineral oil or baby oil, and I just keep a little container on my desk when I'm using my gel plate, and it comes in handy to remove, extra paint or stubborn stains from like pastels and other materials. Okay, next I'm adding a circle stencil to create a moon, and I'm going to be using Liquitex Basics Gold paint, applying multiple layers. And while I let those layers dry, I'm going to work on some leaves, and I'm just painting them on with a paintbrush. So I'm just double checking that my plate is completely dry before I place down my stencil. And I'm going to be using the same black paint that I used before. And I'll be adding some more leaves once I'm done, and I'm going to add some more gold to my moon, and you'll see the results in a few moments. So I let the plate dry completely, and then I went in and added my matte gel medium. And I applied a little bit too much, so I'm just going to take some of that off. You don't want to apply too much because you run the risk of your paper buckling. Okay, so here is the background that I made earlier on in the video, and I'm just placing that down on my plate. I'm going to let this sit now for at least 20 minutes or so, and I'll check in on it to make sure that it's dried completely before I lift it from the plate. Okay, so for my second print, I'm still using my 5x7 gel plate, and I'm using some more stencils. This one I bought, and I'm applying it to the left-hand side, the right-hand side, and a little bit on the bottom. And I'm using the same paint that I used before, and I'm doing multiple coats. So here I'm using another circle stencil, and I'm using the same gold paint that I used earlier, Liquitex Basics Gold. And I'm applying a few different coats because I want my moon to be completely opaque. And here I am just, testing out what my print will look like by just placing it on top of a background that I made earlier. Alright, so I'm using my matte gel medium again to pull this print, and I applied too much as per usual, so I'm just going to remove some of that. I find it difficult sometimes to gauge how much medium I need to use on this smaller plate because I'm so used to working on my bigger plates. But anyway, so I'm applying my paper, my background, and I'm going to let this sit for at least 20 minutes. Sometimes, a little bit shorter. It depends on the weather outside. It's pretty damp and miserable and cold out, so things are taking longer to dry. Okay, so that is my second print. For my next few prints, I'm going to be using coffee dyed paper. So I wanted to show you how I go about doing that. So I have an old container here. I believe it's 9 by 12 in size, so it fits, a wide variety of pages. And I like to use instant coffee. I feel like instant coffee works the best. So I use around 3 teaspoons of coffee and then add a few cups of warm water. I, stir it around, and then I place in my papers. Okay, so I found a picture of some sheet music on UnSplash, and I just manipulated a little bit by lightening it in my photo editing software. There's still some patches of, gray, but I was just too lazy to really to fix it up. But anyway, I used my laser printer to print this up. And I didn't use my inkjet printer because the ink is not waterproof. Laser prints are pretty much waterproof, okay? So, or at least water resistant. So as you can see, the ink is not going anywhere. So I'm going to leave my papers in here for a few hours, and then I'll remove them and I hang them to dry. And that's basically it. So it's a lot of fun to try. You can use tea bags if you have extra tea on hand. There's lots of different ways to do this. I just prefer coffee because it gives me a nice rich color. For my third print, I am using another crow mask that I made. So I'm just pressing it down onto my plate, making sure that it doesn't move around. And I'm going to add a layer of Pebeo Studio Acrylics Burnt Umber. And I'm going to just add some texture in a moment. I'm going to let this layer dry completely, and then I'm going to add a layer of Liquitex Basics Unbleached Titanium, and I'm going to use that layer to pull up the print. Alright, so for my fourth print, I'm still using my coffee dyed paper, and I'm just taping it to the top of my 8x10 gel plate. And I'm going to be using my leaves to the side here as masks, so you'll see that in just a moment. So I'm placing down red oxide and Naples yellow again. I'm trying to keep these prints cohesive. Okay, and I'm attempting to do a gradient, but I'm working rather fast, so sometimes it turns out, sometimes it doesn't. and I'm placing down my leaves. You can try to figure out ahead of time before you apply your paint where you want them to go, but I always forget anyway. I get all frustrated when I try to do these techniques because you have to work pretty fast, okay? So I'm just placing down my paper, and I'm just making sure all areas are covered completely. Okay, and I'm just going to lift up the paper once I feel like it's all covered, and there you go. All right, and I'm just going to cut around my print, and off camera I did use a sparkle gold pen, and I outlined the leaves, so I'll insert a clip of that in a moment. And here I have some nice ghost prints here of my oak leaves, and I'll pick those up using just some more craft paper, and I'll be using those in a later project, so nothing goes to waste. And I quite like this one. I really like the coffee dye paper. Okay, and in a moment you'll see me trying to figure out which side is up and which side is down. Okay. Okay, so I want to pick up my ghost print now, and so I'm using some water on a piece of paper towel to gently go around and clean up the excess paint on my plate, because any paint that's left behind will be picked up by my gel medium that I'm going to use in just a moment to pull up my ghost print. And the reason why I'm using my matte gel medium, which is a clear medium, to pull up my ghost print is because I'm going to be using my brown craft paper that I used earlier on in the video for this print. And I want that brown craft paper to be shown. So if I were to use a colored acrylic, it's just not going to show the paper, right? It's going to cover up the nice colored craft paper. So that's why I'm choosing to use a clear acrylic medium. Now, in a future video, I will, go into more detail about the different mediums that I use and why. I plan to do some more technical videos like that, but I just need to find some time. For my final print, I'm going to be using the laser print resist technique using my at-home monochrome laser printer. This technique is different from the inkjet print water transfer method that I've shown in previous videos, where the ink from the print is actually transferred onto the gel plate. With the laser print resist method, the toner on the image will resist absorbing the paint. There is more toner in the darker areas and less toner in the lighter areas, so the lighter areas will absorb more paint and the darker areas will absorb less paint. So I found 2 different photographs on unsplash.com, free to use under the UnSplash license. So these photographs are by 2 different photographers, and I'll put their names down below in the description box. I used my Affinity Photo software to adjust and merge the images of the barn and the trees. I converted the image from color to black and white, and then I played around with the contrast to get the levels I wanted. The best types of images to use are high contrast, black and white. Okay, so I'm applying a very thin layer of Liquitex Basics Mars Black. And I'm just going to lay down my image Okay, I'm going to press it down very lightly with my Baron, and I'm leaving it on for just a few seconds. Okay, I'm going to lift it up, and there is my image. Okay, so as you can see, it's not foolproof, guys. You know, it's hit or miss. So, you know, you win some, you lose some, and that's just how it is when it comes to using a method like this. Just cleaning up my plate now, and I'm going to add some detail in a moment using my paintbrush. So I'm going to add some grass to the bottom. I'm going to add a moon to the top with some more gold paint in my stencil. And I'm going to add some stars as well. So my plate is dry, so I'm adding my matte medium, applying a thin layer so my paper doesn't buckle. And I'm using a background that I made earlier, very similar to the one I made at the beginning of the video. And I'm going to let this sit for at least 20 minutes. Alright, and this is my print. Once I pull it up, there you go. So I hope you guys enjoyed the video. I hope it was helpful and entertaining, and gave you some ideas for your own gel prints. So thank you so much for watching, and I will hopefully see you on my next one. So happy creating, everyone. Take care.